Everybody, this is Dream, and today we're going to break down the FanDuel slate for the 10-game slate today at 7 p.m. This is the main slate. First, let's get into the injury report for the Hornets. Rozier is doubtful. If he is out, Smith Jr. should continue to start and get a ton of minutes. Also should give a boost to Oubre and Hayward. For the Raptors, Barnes and Porter are both questionable. If both of them play, then that definitely hurts pretty much all the small forwards and power forwards for the Raptors. But if they don't play, then that would give Achua a huge boost as well as Siakam. For the Pacers, Miles Turner is questionable. It looks like he will play. And if he's back, that does hurt Jackson and Smith a little bit, as well as their other power forwards. For the Spurs, it looks like Vassell is out. If he's out, that should give Primo and Richardson a chance to start, and whoever starts would be a huge boost. Also gives a boost to Trey Jones, Keldon Johnson, and Podol for usage. For the Rockets, Sengun and Fernando is both out, which should give a boost to Smith and Garuba. Tate is also questionable, and if he ends up playing, that would hurt the guards a little bit, including Eric Gordon. For the Lakers, Westbrook looks like he's unlikely to play, and that would give a big boost to Walker, Beverly, and Nunn, and maybe even Reeves. LeBron and Davis are both questionable, but they are both likely to play. For the Nuggets, Porter Jr. is questionable, and if he's out, that gives Jeff Green and pretty much all the starters for the Nuggets a little bit of a boost. For the Heat, Oladipo is out, which gives Hero and Lowry a good boost. And then for the Trailblazers, rather, Winslow is questionable, and if he's out, that gives a little boost to Little, as well as a small boost to Hart and Grant. So we have some pretty good injury information there. Hopefully, we get more quality decisions, before the slate starts. So keep track of those injuries. You can jump on Discord to find information there. We keep that updated every day throughout the day. So with that said, let's get into the slate itself. But before I do that, can you guys please smash that like and subscribe button? Really do appreciate it. With that said, let's get into the position players today. Now, I'm not going to mention a player at a position if they're playing multiple, like for instance, DeJounte Murray can play shooting guard and power point guard. So I'm only going to mention him once if he's somebody on the list. So just explaining that. So for that said, let's go into the guards first. So we're going to look at Ben Simmons first here. His price point is too cheap here to ignore. I don't love him here, obviously, but he's been okay so far this season in at least one of the few games. He's going to get a decent chunk of minutes, and while he doesn't really score the ball much, he doesn't get actual points. He does get assists and rebounds, and if he can get a double-double from that perspective, then he would definitely pay off here. His price point continues to drop a little bit, and that's the reason I'm mentioning him, but he's more of a GPP play only. From that perspective, Pat Beverly has been playing. He's a good defensive guard, and he definitely gets defensive stats, which are helpful on FanDuel. And he has more upside here with Westbrook out. He's still kind of a GPP play despite that because of his price point, but overall he's a pretty interesting play. Trae Young looks like a solid start play today for Atlanta against Detroit. His price point is a little bit too cheap here on FanDuel, so he's one of my top options on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Dennis Smith Jr. Now, he should be the starter. Now, his price point has come up quite a bit, so it's not as ideal here. But as long as Terry Rozier's out, then Smith Jr. is going to be the starter and will likely get lots of minutes. And then Kyle Lowry from Miami, he's in a pretty good spot here. His price point is pretty cheap. With Oladipo out, he gets more run. He didn't get as much run in the last game because he was kind of gimpy from the first Toronto game. But overall, and I think that was a back-to-back, or at least almost a back-to-back. At any rate, he's probably should be fully healthy and ready to go in this one. And it looks like Oladipo is going to continue to be out. He's not a great play, but he's a pretty solid play, and he has a lot of upside. His floor is just a little bit too low, a little bit lower than we'd like. Another guard that I like here is DeMar DeRozan. Now, DeRozan has been playing pretty solid so far this season. The real catch here with him is his price point has come down a little bit, but his upside's still there. But with Levine playing, it does take a hit to his usage a little bit, so he's not the biggest lock on the planet by any stretch, but he's still decent at this price point. RJ Barrett is a pretty good spot today. His price point has come down some. The Knicks are kind of an enigma because they kind of screw with minutes a lot, And so you'll have him play 35 minutes and 25 minutes and 35 minutes, and that happens with him a lot. And so you do have to be concerned about that. So he's a GPP play, but he is still a little bit risky as a result of the way the Knicks, mess with lineups and stuff. Drew Holiday looks like a great option today. His price point is still pretty cheap, and he has a lot of upside as long as Middleton is still out, and he gets plenty of minutes as a result. Anytime that Middleton is out, he usually gets a pretty solid boost. His first game this season wasn't great, but the last game was really good against Houston, and I look for him to continue to play well as the season progresses on. Gordon Hayward looks like he's in a pretty decent spot against the Knicks. Now, he's been a little bit inconsistent so far this season. His price has risen a little bit, but he's still a pretty good play as long as their point guards are out. He's going to have to take more shots in these games. Eric Gordon looks like an interesting play, assuming that Tate doesn't play today and he starts. Eric Gordon's got to start to really pay off here. Not only that, but he also needs to shoot threes and hit at them. He's a three-point defendant player, but he is cheap and he is pretty safe floor when it comes to his potential in this game. Bruce Brown Jr. for the Denver Nuggets also looks kind of interesting today. Assuming that Porter is out, he would be a good option, especially if he can start. So you're going to have to keep an eye out on the injury report to see if he ends up starting. And if he does, then he'd be a good option. But I really wouldn't use him if he didn't start. Then we're going to look at some forwards. So Giannis is a great option today. His price point is obviously extremely high, but he gets a ton of minutes when he doesn't get into foul trouble, and he gets a lot of usage. Like, he's a top usage guy in the NBA, basically. Last game, he only played 27 minutes, and he scored 44 actual points and had a double-double, and scored 60 fantasy points. I don't know if his upside is quite as high against this particular team against Brooklyn, but overall, he's in a good spot, and he's a great player, and that's what that is. Jimmy Butler from Miami, his price point is pretty good here on FanDuel, a lot better than DraftKings, and he's been pretty consistent so far this season here. He really hasn't even gotten peripheral stats like steals that he normally gets, and so I do think that he's got some upside with the price point since it's come down a little bit, and so he's one of my favorite plays on this particular slate in this matchup. And then Caleb Martin for the Miami, assuming he plays, his price point has come down quite a bit. Now, he didn't play the last game, so he should be back, though. His floor is pretty high at 15 or so fantasy points. The real risk here is if he didn't start or something, but overall, he should start and should be a decent option. At power forward, we're going to look at Olynyk for the Utah. Now, his price point isn't super ideal here, but as long as he keeps his minutes up in the 25-plus minutes, he should still have some upside. I don't love him here, but I do like him. Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be another victim of the Knicks being all sorts of crazy when it comes to minutes. And if you look at his minutes, 40, 21, 18, he's still getting in the 20s most games, so it's just a matter of him getting a few more minutes. I don't really, the Knicks, they do this with all their players. They kind of play sporadic minutes, so you do have to be, they're all GPP plays, but they're still decent. Bam Adebayo looks like a pretty solid option today. He's averaging, he's been up and down so far this season, but it just depends on which kind of, how the team plays, or whether they go through him or where they don't go through him, and that kind of changes game to game. But against Portland, they should definitely be trying to go through him some, so I do like him on this slate. Bobby Portis, he looks like his price point has dropped pretty good, and with that price drop, that's giving him some upside here. Now, his limited on minutes around 22. I really like it if he would start. But if he's not starting, then, with his price being dropped, he definitely gains some interest as a result. For the centers, we have Jacob Poeltl. Now, his price point is not as ideal here as it is on DraftKings, but he does get underappreciated on DFS because of, I guess, where he plays. But he's been close to a double-double in every single game so far this season, and his floor is pretty high, so I do think he's in a good spot in this matchup here. Capella also looks like a decent option today at his price point. Not super ideal because his minutes are a little bit sporadic, but he does have upside as a result, and he can sometimes have big games. Robinson for the Knicks, he's another guy that's going to get all over the place when it comes to minutes, but if he can come out of the gate and play well, then he has some upside. He's definitely a GPP play only. Rudy Gobert, his price point has really dropped a lot here on DraftKings, surprisingly. Now he's been a little bit all over the place so far this season. He does tend to get some steals and blocks, which definitely helps his price, helps his fantasy potential here. But it's pretty evident that that him and Towns are gonna have to like trade off game to game, and so depending on which guy goes hard in that game is really gonna be the one that pays off. But both those guys actually have dropped on price on FanDuel. Neither of them are playable on DraftKings because the price being so high. Jokic is another guy I really like here. The Joker's been playing really solid so far this season. The only question here really is like, so he's had a triple double in 2 out of the 4 games. He's been extremely close in the third game where he had 9, 9, and 9, but he didn't get a ton of fantasy points as a result of that because he got 32.3. He really got to get in the mid 20s and the actual regular points for him to really pay off. He does have upside here, but his price is high, so that does give him a little bit of risk. But he's also a triple double magnet, and so it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of what game to game. I think he's going to be highly motivated against the Lakers, and I don't think Anthony Davis is going to be able to stop him. So one thing too is that the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets will both shoot a lot of jump shots and threes, and so I expect that these two teams will give him a lot of opportunity for rebounds. Anyhow, that's what I got for this slate. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.